Back, everybody. Hour 2 on this Monday morning. Got some more on that Jack's Bison football recruiting conversation. I want to do that coming up later on in the show because I want to highlight a couple of the guys that the Bison have gotten some interesting comments, I think, coming out of South Dakota. We'll get to that coming up later on in the show. We mentioned it, though, in our best of the weekend, and it's hard to top what we saw Saturday night in Eugene, Oregon, as Payton Otterdahl is heading back to the Olympic Games, representing both Rosemount, Minnesota, and North Dakota State. He'll join us on the show on Wednesday. He's traveling back from Eugene this morning. Our pleasure getting up with us this morning, though. Great to see NDSU track head coach Stevie Keller back with us. This is, I don't think I need to do recruiting pitches for you, but you have 4 consecutive Olympic Games with Olympians out of North Dakota State. That's a pretty good recruiting pitch to throw out there.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty amazing when you think of North Dakota State and you're sending kids to the Olympic Games, 4 of the Olympic years in a row. I joked with Payton earlier this year, last year, said the pressure's kind of on right now because I think you're our only hope to make the Olympic team. And he's always so humble and I'll try my best, and I think that's kind of what his mentality is he's going to go out and compete and he's going to do his best every time he competes. And obviously, we're really excited here at NDSU for Payton and, the throws community here, Bison throws. They're pumped up. A lot of those kids were following along, and he's done a lot of great things in his career. But to be able to make the Olympic team, twice in your carear is pretty amazing.
All right, so I'm not a great track mind. You are. I'm watching Saturday night, and he fouled on his first attempt. Was it nerve-wracking for him? It didn't seem like it, but when that happens, what happens mentally, Stevie, after that?
Yeah, I mean, there's one or two things can happen. You can mentally shut down because that first throw is, the first attempt, the first throw in anything is always very valuable because, hey, I have a mark. I can build off that. I can move on. Probably more stressful for the coach, obviously. When you're the athlete, you have some control and maybe, maybe something went wrong on the throw and he felt it and he was able to fine tune and adjust. So those guys are such... they're trained at such a high level, competing at a high level. They just know their body so well and know their technique.
He seemed to shake off because then his second one was pretty good. Third was good. Fourth was really good. And then the fifth throw was the one that got him there. So it was just a gradual build. As you're watching, give me your emotions as the competition was playing out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to try to hit that big throw right away and things like that. But I mean, he was able to build on every throw, and I think that's important. As you go into the Olympic Games, he's going to be ranked pretty high going in because the U.S. is probably one of the toughest events to make the Olympic team in. I'm not just saying that because Payton's a former athlete of ours and a Bison, but it is very stacked, a loaded field. So he's going to have to. You're going to have to count on the first 3 throws to get into the finals. But then also you want to be able to build on each throw. And, some guys hit one throw and then they don't improve.
I was nervous watching. Were you? I can't imagine. What were the nerves when you were watching Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously watch track and field a lot and watch our kids compete. And, the hardest part as a coach is you have all the control you have is basically put into the preparation. And knowing that, hey, this student athlete's ready to compete. And like I said, I'm sure Payton's prepared himself well. You want it so bad for those kids to do well. And I mean, just watching him, compete, you would just sort of like, man, he's such a great kid. He's such a great person. And just really for those reasons alone, you want Payton to be at the Olympic Games.
When the fifth throw, the big one, you could see it in his face that he knew it. That was going to take something special to get there. That was the first time it seemed like he let his guard down.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, it's a competitive field. And I think going into it, it's like, hey, I could throw really well and not make the team here. It wasn't like, hey, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to have an average meet and I'll be on the team. So, I mean, I think that it's, hats off to Payton for being able to compete at such a high level at a very, very challenging meet and difficult competition.
Give us the backstory a bit on how he got to NDSU, out of Rosemount, Minnesota. It seems funny now, like, wow, how in the world did other schools miss him? For what you remember and recall, how did you guys get him up to NDSU?
Yeah, I mean, Lars was the head coach at that time. Coach St. Clair was our throws coach, so they were really in on the recruiting. But the stories I've heard and been told is that, Payton was recruited Not probably by a ton of Division I programs. He was an undersized guy, but showed a lot of potential. We invested in him his freshman year, and I think that was part of it. But just the relationship he probably built with Coach St. Clair, Coach Larson, through the recruiting process, and you know. I think, this day and age, I think Payton still stays at NDSU and finishes out his career
Mm.
here. I think, he was a national champion. He was a collegiate record holder in the shot put. I think, he proved that, hey, you don't need to be at the biggest school in the country to be successful.
He told us on Friday he wanted no part of Fargo. Like he knew about the weather. He's like, I don't. But his mom actually did a little convincing for him to come up and take the visit. And then after that, he was sold.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot here at NDSU. Is it's you get the bad rap of the weather and the wind and the flatness and things like that. But once you get a kid on campus, you get them to the Fargo community. A lot of times it sells itself. And over COVID, I felt like that was one of our our handcuffs. There is we couldn't get kids on
Yeah.
campus. We couldn't show them what we had to offer here. So still bringing kids in for camps and summer visits. They're like, man, this is unbelievable. And I think that it's what we've been able to do here as an athletic department, as a university, as a city, is just evolve and be able to provide great opportunities.
I know this is a biased question to you, but I have to ask it anyway. Our poll question today: is he the greatest or the best athlete in school history? 2 NCAA championships at the Division I level, now 2 trips to the Olympic Games. Give me your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, I mean, I feel comfortable saying he's the greatest track and field athlete to come out of North Dakota State.
How about best athlete overall? Would you go there?
No understanding the sport of track and field. Yeah, I mean, to win a national title in Division I. I mean, for us to get kids to the national meet, you're talking about 2% of the kids that compete in college or Division I that make the national meet. So a guy that he sets a collegiate record. He wins 2 national titles in the same meet, not just one. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and I would say he's, now 2 Olympics. He's been to some world championships. The guy's just had a phenomenal career.
How big a deal is this for you? I joked about this, about the recruiting, but on a serious note, how big a deal is this for you to go out to talk to prospective athletes now, to have this in your back pocket?
Yeah, it's huge. And it's not just like they come on campus, they're like, oh, who's that guy? I mean, people know, like, hey, this is where Payton Otterdahl went to school and things. And kids from Minnesota obviously know who he is. Kids from the region, now kids around the country. So, I mean, it's huge just to be able to, say, hey, he went through our program. He wasn't a national qualifier his freshman year. He put in the time, he developed, and things like that. I mean, I love looking back at pictures of him when he was a freshman compared to what he looks like his senior year now. I mean, it's amazing. It's it's 2 people put together basically from his freshman year.
Yeah, that's like the Hulk, basically, right? That's what he's turned into.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and the Otterdahl family is,
Yes.
Trevor graduated here last year. Max started here. I mean, they really bought into Bison Athletics and being part of this program. So it's pretty cool to see.
And he said it on NBC after the interview on Saturday, and during the interview Saturday night. He said it's the hardest team in the world to make. And I posed that question to him on Friday, because Ryan Krauser, for those of us that don't follow it all the time, I know him simply because I follow the sport just a little bit because Peyton's in it. He's literally a machine. He just had major surgery, Stevie, and then he went out and he almost threw it out of the shot pit on Saturday night.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. When you look at a guy like Peyton and him, and I mean, just being able to compete with that guy, and it's just, yeah, it's crazy the depth of the shot put in the United States.
Is this like your Super Bowl week with the track trials going on? Are you watching it every night?
Yeah, and it's great because it's on TV, so
Yeah.
you can catch a little bit of it there. So your normal fan or your non-track fan can catch a little bit of track and field, and they seem to have some good finals every single evening. So it's appealing to people to watch that, and they do a good job with the storyline. I mean, the kid from Minnesota that just made the steeplechase Olympics. I mean, the kid that didn't make the state meet in high school. I think that really. That really explains you, like, track and field, like the development is so late for some people. At 18 years old, he the kid probably was underdeveloped, obviously didn't make the state meet, which is not easy to do in Minnesota.
Yep.
And also to continue to train and develop over his time and stick with it is pretty amazing.
You've seen Chris Nilsson up close. Tell me how special he is from South Dakota. He's going back to the Olympics in the pole vault.
Yeah, great kid, not just a great athlete, but a great person. Coach Pritchard, our jumps multi or vault coach at the time, worked with him at some camp. So he got to know him, and Chris was always talking to him. So I got a chance to visit with him a little bit. But yeah, I mean, in the vault, the guy's been consistent. He's clutch, and it's fun to see, a kid that you've watched jump and
Yeah.
throughout his college career make the Olympic team.
That's just it. The Summit Leagues would be pretty well represented in Paris. There's something you can't say either, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. For a smaller conference, they have a couple of guys and maybe some more. I mean, you could do some digging. There might be some kids that from some other countries that have made it as well.
Noah Lyles ran 9.83 in the 100. Everyone's used to what Usain Bolt did, which we're never going to see that. But how fast is that for 9.83 in the 100 last night?
That's pretty impressive. Yeah. Yeah, that's very impressive. I think it's just one of those things that the hundreds one of you dial everything in, you put together a great race, and you saw a lot of personal bests yesterday when you start looking through the results, and obviously the conditions in Oregon have been pretty good. So it's what track and field should be, getting to the Olympic trials and people coming out and hitting the personal record, and the sleepers are making the Olympic team, and they're these stories that you hear are just awesome.
I'd argue you're in it. You've talked to people. The U.S. track team, is that overall the hardest team to make of all the sports?
I think so. I think it's just because it's head-to-head competition. I mean, swimming obviously is similar to that, but some of these other sports are team sports, and they're picked teams based on whatever. So it's and unfortunately you could be one of the top in the country and have a bad meet and not make the Olympic team. It's a unique thing, and there is a standard that you have to hit, so it gets confusing at times. You might be fourth or fifth, you have the standard, the third place person doesn't have it, you get to go. So it isn't necessarily always the top three, but majority of the events it is.
So August 2nd and 3rd is the shot put competition. This is going to be so different, Stevie, because Tokyo, no fans. It was the middle of the night sometimes, or the early day. This is going to be middle of the afternoon. He's going to compete. I got to imagine you guys are going to play this up to the hilt, and more people be able to follow it simply because it's at a better time where people can watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's a better time people can watch. And, for Payton, he's going to experience the Olympic Games this time. Yeah. Last time it was like, hey, show up, don't talk to anybody. We're going to fly in. You're going to compete. We're going to get you out of here. Don't go to opening ceremonies. So he can take part in whatever he'd like to this time, which is really cool. I'm sure that I was out in Eugene with them when he made it last time. And he already had 2 full suitcases of USA gear. And I think we talked about this, but it was, we stayed in a VRBO. We had a bunch of athletes out there competing, and Payton stayed, with us for the week. And he just left his stuff in the middle of the living room floor, I think, so we could just see it every time we came in the house. So I'm assuming he's getting tons of gear, and I think, there's opening ceremonies, there's closing ceremonies, apparel. So he's going to have to get a storage unit for all his Olympic stuff.
Another Olympian she hopes to be in 28 is a athlete of yours that just graduated, in Lexi Maples from New Zealand. She made the NCAA championships in the hammer throw. Tell us about how special her year was with you, and what kind of athlete we could see maybe in 4 years in LA.
Yeah, I mean, Lexi's a great kid. We were fortunate to get her for 1 year. That she's a grad transfer. Spent the previous years in New Zealand, so that gets a little bit tricky with the NCAA eligibility center. So, we were hoping to get 2 years out of her, but she only was eligible for 1. But yeah, Lexi made a lot of progress this year. I think she's moving to Northridge. She's going to have a place to train, people to train with, nice. Which I think are key. It's hard because she's going to have to get a job. She's going to have to work. In 4 more years, there's a lot can change. And if she can just, continue to train and have a training partner, I think that's key.
We're talking always on the recruiting trail in football. Give me what it's like for you guys going head to head against some big schools. What's that like when you're in the room knowing that maybe this kid has a Big Ten or an SEC sniffing around? How do you guys try and do that and going head to head against the bigger schools in the recruiting world?
Yeah, I mean, if we're in the room with them, if there's big offers, that's usually means we're recruiting the right type of kid that's going to be able to help us out and things. So, I mean, it's not uncommon for us to recruit against Big Ten schools, Big 12 schools and things. But, I think kids are going to have maybe a better opportunity here right away to compete. Whether they go to, a Big Ten school or NDSU, I think with the size of the conference now, because we're still going to get development kids in.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to develop kids, and hopefully by their 4th or 5th year, they're at a pretty high level, whether it's at the conference level, the national level. I don't know that the Big Ten conference can do that. I think, as big as it is, they're going to have to go after some higher level kids, make some investments in them. So I see this as a positive for us, because you're going to start to pull some kids from Minnesota, and you're going to get some kids out of the state that are, pretty high level kids coming in. They're going to be able to contribute right away.
Oh, I got a juicy email to leave you with. Ask Stevie, who's his next Olympian? Who do you have one in the pipeline saying this one has a chance? Do you have one on the team right now?
I'm going to go with Payton Otterdahl in 4 years.
What is the lifespan? I mean, what is he, 28 right now? I mean, you could do this for another, if you wanted to, right? I mean, the grind of doing that. What is the lifespan in that sport?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys in their 30s that are still competing.
Yeah.
If he's smart about it and trains right. I know he's had a few surgeries here to help things. But yeah, I mean, he's, I would assume he's going to continue to throw. Hopefully as long as he can. But other than Payton right now, I guess I don't want to throw any names out there. I think we have some potential people that could potentially get there. Which is exciting and things.
It's great to see you, bud. Congratulations. It was so cool to watch this happen on Saturday night. Appreciate the time as always. Be well. Have a good summer. We'll talk again before the Olympics, okay?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks a lot, Dom.
There you go. Stevie Keller, NDSU track coach, joining us on this Monday morning as the Bison have another Olympian in their back pocket. Congratulations. And again, Payton will join us Wednesday, 10:30 on part of the Bison Media Zone show we have coming up on Wednesday. So looking forward to that. To the two-time Olympian heading to the games in Paris. August 2nd and the 3rd is when the shot put. The Olympic Games begin on July 26th. That's the opening ceremony. I think actually they start I think it's July 24th because soccer starts earlier in Paris. We'll break. Got a couple other things to get to, a few emails as well as we roll on at a busy Monday. Hot Mike returns after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL TV, and Inforum.com.